I think we're good to go.
Good to go?
I'm sorry. Yep.
No, that's all right. We expected some.
This building is
Got to have a glitch here and there to make it be right.
beautiful.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Schiefelbein is gone today. I'm the vice chair and will be chairing the meeting. And I would like to call the Meeker County Board of Commissioners regular session for July 2nd to order. Would you join me in the pledge?
It's over here. Yep.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make comment? Okay. Hearing none. Board meeting agenda. Are there any additions to the board meeting agenda?
Mr. Chair, I will move the agenda as presented.
Commissioner Schmidt has made a motion to move,
I will second that.
seconded by Commissioner Bredesen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Then we have the consent agenda, and I will go through that because Andrew's remote and I'm not sure what he's getting not. We have the June 18th board minutes, the Board of Appeal and Equalization meeting minutes need to be approved. Approve the Health and Human Services, County and Hospital accounts payable. Approve a quote from Atwater Ford for 2025 squad car purchases. Approve a quote from Marco Technologies for network infrastructure upgrade. And reappointment of Robert Schiefelbein to the Clearwater Watershed District Board of Managers. Does anyone have any questions on any of those items? Julie?
I do, Mr. Chair. On the quote from Marco Technologies, it gives us the financial impact, which we came in under the estimate, which is, of course, beneficial. But then under the recommended motion, it does not actually list the amount that will be spent. Is that something that needs to be typed within that motion, the 141? I know on our other motions, we usually include the amount which will be spent. So that was my question.
I think it's all there.
I think it's all there.
Andrew question is
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not absolutely necessary that it be included in there.
because we are approving the quote, and then if you read up above financial impact, final quote came in at that figure.
Yeah.
So
So is that sufficient?
indirectly, we're approving that amount.
I think.
Would that be okay? Okay.
I believe it is.
That was my question.
Mr. Chair, I have one question. I guess we'll go to Brian. So we're ordering am I reading this right? We're that far behind on our squad cars.
So we're still short, yeah, so this year, this goes back to 2020, we're still
Okay.
short 3 from this year, we're only getting 9 out of the 12.
Okay.
So our regular rotation is 4, so the quote is for 7, there's 5.
All right, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah,
So are we never going to catch, are they never going to catch up or?
so
This is
the year, like next year, we should be good.
Caught up.
They're getting caught up now, so.
So are we getting a lot of miles on squads? On
We are, and if you look at our budget,
the repairs?
go way up.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that was my question.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
Mr.
I
Chair.
was going to add, yeah, it's hard to keep track because we've been behind
Yeah.
we're behind up.
It's like reading a maze here.
We were behind up to 12 at one point, I believe, nearly 12 squads at one point.
Yeah, I lost track.
I see. I know.
So there was 1 year we didn't get any squads, and 1 year where we didn't get the squads for the next year, so we missed 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the ones we have this year, the other issue we're now having is because everybody ordered so many squads, our ones that we had delivered already have still been sitting at the outfitters for 3
Oh, wow.
months because they're so backlogged. So that's the next thing.
And I'm
Goodness.
assuming prices keep going up like everything else, and we can't do a thing about it.
Yeah, the squads are about double of what they were when I started this job.
How about the outfitting? Has that gone way up too?
Way up.
So question, when I was reading the things, and this is only for my own information, ballistic door panels, is that the door skin or do they put a liner on the inside?
The panel inside the door. don't see it, it's within a door.
And that will stop a shell?
Yeah. It has a rifle rating, so the lower powered rifles, it will stop that as well.
Oh,
But handguns, it'll.
I was just,
That came out of the Eden Valley incident where the officer was saved because of the panel, so then how do you not do this going forward? So.
yeah. Any other questions?
That's all I had.
That's it.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I so move that we approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Bredesen, seconded by Commissioner Olberg. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mary Ellen Wells from Meeker Memorial Hospital.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just a couple of things. You have in your packet the financial performance of the organization through May, and you can see we're still nicely ahead of our budget, doing well, keeping another key indicator that I look for is on the page of the balance sheet, and where you see the days in accounts receivable, and we're running nicely at 48 days, which for a hospital our size and scope of services, when you can keep it under 50, that's considered a good performance.
And we've come a long ways with that.
We have
worked
come
on
a
that,
long
didn't we?
ways
I mean, a couple of years ago. So
It was-
someone's done a good job.
It
I
was
appreciate
almost double that.
it. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
So, but I do have to say, I'm glad that we have this cushion, because just a heads up, July is going to be a tougher month for us. Very candidly, our orthopedic surgeon left as of Friday, and Dr. Walker, who's been a longstanding member of the medical staff and has done over 20 years, he did my knee replacement almost 20 years ago. He's going back to Hutchinson full-time. But I'm very pleased to report that we have finalized. We're I haven't signed on the dotted line, but we have 5 applications for privileges from St. Cloud Orthopedics, and they will actually be available in Litchfield more than Dr. Walker was. So we're very pleased to see this advancement, but it's going to take a month before they can get in, get their schedules going, and we can start announcing and referring to them.
and also, I think you said that Walker hasn't been doing surgeries for a few weeks because there wasn't time for follow-up.
Yes, he did slow down. And the breadth and types of surgeries that these two, the two main physicians who are coming surgeons, is much broader than what Dr. Walker was doing here. So in the long run, we'll be better off, but I just know that we're going to be using some of that cushion in July. And we're keeping the staff in surgery busy in the meantime, assigning different projects to them. There's always work to be done that we can have them working on in the meantime.
Mary Ellen, will we use an aggressive ad campaign to let everybody know?
Yes, we are in the final stages. We had put on hold after COVID the foundation and marketing efforts, and we are filling a position now, director of the foundation and marketing. It's a dual position. We should be making an offer this week, and the first thing on the docket is a marketing campaign for orthopedics.
Good.
And we continue to work and look at other specialties as well, especially general surgery. Dr. Tim Peterson, again, a long-standing member of this community. We recognize that we need to supplement his practice as well, so we are actively looking for general surgeon as well. One other update is the building plans for the campus. We're looking at a new master facility plan. Stepping back, in taking several months to review the demographics in this community, what's the future looking like, what can we, as accurately as possible, predict what will be the needs in the future, and then how does that translate into our facility. We know that the 2 clinics are aging out, and we're looking at replacing those 2 clinics and merging them into 1 clinic building. We also are looking at the, gosh, I get my directions mixed up, but the older of the 2 sides of the buildings is beyond useful life, well beyond useful life, that eventually we will need to tear that down and replace many of the functions that are in that building. But rather than just jump into it and bring something forward, we're taking a very planful look. And the board is engaged. They saw a first report the past month on the demographics for the town and what are the medical needs of the future. And so we'll keep building on that. We've engaged with BWBR and Terry Ulrich, who is a Litchfield person. She's actually the president now of BWBR, the architectural firm who does a lot of healthcare. And she's very involved in helping. We also, CentraCare has facilities experts who we're tapping as well to provide their expertise and assistance as part of our management agreement. I'll stop there. So it'll probably be, we're looking at, our goal is sometime this late fall to have a master facility plan, and then we'll start talking about financing, what it will take to make it happen.
And just to get back to the orthopedics, so we're just waiting for, what are we waiting for on that again?
For the orthopedics?
Yes.
They've submitted their application.
Okay.
Getting privileges at a hospital to practice as a physician is onerous these days. Okay. We have to do what's called primary source verification. We can't just take their word for it. We have to contact their medical school. We have to contact the hospital where they did their residency and complete all of their background checks. And then that's just for the hospital. But we also have the payers, Blue Cross, Medica, Health Partners. They also have to credential physicians.
So that takes the most time.
It takes,
and we have someone that does that for us, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Right?
Cynthia Green on our staff is
okay.
She loves the detail.
Good.
It's ironic because at Prime West, each meeting, we see the list of newly credentialed.
Yes.
We have a person that does that full time. So,
you would think that if somebody has credentials in one hospital,
yep.
it would be automatic, but it isn't.
Oh, no. It isn't.
But I don't know how long. I mean, we have a full-time person just doing that. That's what they do. So, yeah. It's going to be.
I'll stop there if there are questions.
That's going to be a great positive for our hospital.
Mr. Schmidt?
So.
Watch out, we have a golf tournament coming up if you're interested in golfing or sponsoring or participating.
That's August. Do you remember the date?
7th, 9th?
Paul knows he always golfs.
I know. I haven't signed up yet.
Uh-oh.
But we're ready. We just
Andrew
haven't done.
Usually does too, so we'll get some things for you, for sure.
I must say, I played in the chamber tournament last week, and I played this golf course many, many years ago with Dr. Lofness.
Yes.
It's a nice course.
It is.
I enjoyed it.
So we are hopeful, and we are working toward replacing the number of surgeries, still providing OB, C-sections, the hips, the knees, all of those sorts of things in our facility here in Litchfield.
OB is a bit of a struggle.
It is.
In a lot of smaller hospitals, so.
We're lucky, though. We have 4 very strong, or 5 physicians who practice obstetrics, and we have 3 who do C-section coverage, which is nice in a community our size.
Yes. I had just sleep study that I had to wait 2 months to get in just to get it scheduled. I had to go to Wilmer because some issues. And then he said, as soon as you schedule the sleep study, then call me because I'm out. So this is Hernandez, I think his name, really nice guy. And so they scheduled it for July 17th, and I can't see him till September 19th. So this is how you wait for things. So the study's in place, and that's happening all over, isn't it?
It is.
So those are things we just have to.
Solace in the fact that we're not alone.
Absolutely not, so.
Commissioner Schmidt.
I just had a question. You talked about the accounts receivable, the 48 days accounts receivable, and then I was looking at your operating days cash on hand, and where do you like to be there? I'm just looking at the first 5 months of the year, the fluctuation.
You want to be well over 200 days.
Okay, so that's kind of a benchmark or whatever. I'm more just curious where your mark.
Yeah.
So
that's the same thing we always ask the auditors, that they're never willing to really, right? They don't really give you here either when we ask them. They don't really give you a figure.
We're in the stages right now with the audit and should have that ready
right
at the end of this month.
Are we still relying?
I'm sorry.
Are we still relying on a lot of the traveling nurses?
Actually,
has that
way back? The main area where we use travelers now. We do about 100 deliveries a year, and that's 2 a week. And so if you're a nurse who works, it could be that you miss a delivery. And so it's tough to keep your skills up as a nurse. And so we still have some travelers there. Although we're looking at sending our OB nurses to Wilmer and St. Cloud, so that they can participate in deliveries at those hospitals to keep up their skills.
So they have so many hours, don't they, or something?
For their recertification,
exactly.
for their skills. Yeah, that's a concern. But I know a large portion of our budget there for a while was being spent on traveling nurses, and what can you do about it? Yeah. But have we been able to hire some?
We have, and yes, we have. We've had a nice resurgence of people who want to work locally.
Good.
There were many nurses who traveled, and we're tired of that, not being home.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mary Ellen?
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
You all.
They're all doing a great job, so always let them know we appreciate them.
So now I want to do a sound check. How is the voice in the back of the room? Can you hear us plainly?
We sit back like
The
this.
people at the table, you could hear Mary Ellen well?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's a concern,
Sure.
brand new.
I could tell when I got closer, I could hear myself, but when I'm back here, then it's of course.
Still, I have to tell you, I had COVID a couple of weeks ago, so I'm still a little
Well
bit.
plugged up.
So sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
See you.
Barb Locke, Property Records, Taxes, and Elections Manager with an agreement with the University of Minnesota Extension Program.
So in your packet, you received the agreement as it was outlined, and a couple highlights in that agreement for those that are listening in. Meeker County does have the privilege of having 3 shared positions. We are in partnership with Wright and McLeod so that we can employ 3 specialists in our area of agricultural, horticulture, crops, and livestock. They're very pleased with that agreement because it gives them opportunities to work in their expertise area more than trying to solve all the issues that come through that office. We also, in Meeker County, employ a full-time 4-H leader, and we have 1 full-time staff. Along with that, we do and will be budgeting some intern summer staff. This agreement was worked out between AMC and the Extension Committee at the state level, giving more of a uniform across the state approach. Unfortunately, for 2025, we are taking a large increase, 19 to 20%. Part of that increase has to do with the timing of the previous agreements and then beefing up the salary and benefits for some of the staff so that they could attract and retain quality staff. That's an issue at the state level as well as everywhere else. So before you is the agreement with the Regents of the University of Minnesota and Meeker County for our extension programs locally. This agreement is for 3 years. The largest increase in 2025, and then in 26 and 27, just a 3% COLA is what is planned.
Questions?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I know. They did a market study, just as we did with the county, and the University of Minnesota did that. And these folks, of course, have to have an education. They're well qualified. They're usually stellar employees, and they're having the same issue that we are in attracting and retaining really good folks.
And the other issue they brought up, and I think Julie alluded to that a little bit, is they were flat for a number of years trying to work through budgets, and that was certainly not in everyone's favor now that we need the large increase.
The first year we'll see the primary percentage increase in this 3-year contract, and the last 2 years we'll see a basic 3% cost of living. So it's the first year that we will feel this. But
I think you saw the impact. It's 44,000. It's actually 44,148. The additional 300 in there is for the programming for 4-H programs. We do purchase that through the MOA, and that's why that number's in there. So the increase the first year is 44,448, which is a steeper increase than we're accustomed to.
Steve and I were at the Association of Minnesota Counties, AMC district meeting, and we saw a very passionate presentation.
Lori was.
And explanation of what they were doing and why they were doing it. So
So they're doing it because they can't find people, and so they're going to put more money out. Is that the same reason everyone says?
I think after the market study, I think they found out that they hadn't kept up with the market.
So I'm going to vote for this, but I'm just going to go back to the question I always ask: where is this going to end? Because at some point in time, fellas, we got to find a way to not just. We talked about this, Paul. You know, this isn't. I'm all for 4-H. It isn't that, but it's just getting kind of. It's not just them, it's everyone. And I think at some point in time, Steve, we need to find a different route here.
Then I got an AMC report from our June 1st meeting coming up, but we talked about in there too. Then this kind of goes to your point, Beth, that one of the problems we're having as counties, Our biggest, basically it came out, I mean, I think it was said exactly, the state is our biggest enemy as
Absolutely.
counties.
In more ways than one, by the way, but I won't get into
And we're
that.
focusing more on like law enforcement and deputies and stuff, because they just raise their scale and then take our law enforcement folks or whoever they are, whatever agency, this is no different. I mean, it's just another state agency, and so it is, I agree, where does it end? I mean, and I'm all for 4-H and extension and supportive, and I'm supportive of this, but it makes you question other areas
Absolutely.
in operation at state level, not at county level.
And 4-H, I've never been involved in it that much. My grandchildren have. That's free to anyone that comes, right? Correct. So every little, and
and these programs not only help the youth of our county, but all demographics, whether they're rural or residential folks, and whether they're young or they're old, and whether you have a garden or you are a farmer, it covers the entire spectrum of our county's demographics. I've been involved with extension since I was a little kid.
Don't tell no one giving your age away.
Yeah, I'm kidding, older, but it's an excellent program, and
I agree with you, but
to retain these talented, wonderful, educated people, it's a struggle, and we see it, of course, with the county as well.
I'm just making the point that we have to start looking at some of this because it's never ending.
It's like Steve said.
It's a separate issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not about
Not
extension.
this,
and
but it
full-
just brings it. Yeah.
But there's a statewide issue that we're competing against the state.
We're
We've
robbing
seen
Peter
law
to pay Paul.
enforcement.
Exactly.
We've
That's
seen
all
it
we're
with
doing.
our medical
So-
people, we've seen it with our county employees. It's across, I serve on the library board to retain our librarians, all of the,
I don't see it changing anytime soon.
I know it's
So I
this,
don't know.
this
we have a
economy.
Maybe elections make a difference. I'm
Do we
not
have a
sure.
motion on this particular matter?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agreement between the Regents of the University of Minnesota and Meeker County for providing extension programs locally and employing extension staff for the term of 3 years, beginning on January 1, 2025, and ending on December 31st, 2027, unless earlier terminated.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr.
Seconded by Commissioner Schmidt. Is there any further discussion?
I would just make that point that, state level is affecting us. As far as the 4-H and FFA and the activities at the fair with extension throughout the year, I think the biggest thing is the outreach that extension does. Just the education that it gives. It gets youth mainly is what we want involved in activities other than things where idle hands get in.
No, I'm
So it's a great,
I support the program.
and I think
that's
this
nothing.
is-
exactly.
We're
So
getting-
I want to make sure we're
Oh, yeah, we're
Absolutely.
getting a
we're
really
separating
good,
the two issues, but there is some issues.
we're getting a really good bang for our buck with our union, with 3 counties combined to provide these services and programs. It's a good program.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Yep.
So coming to us from high above and non-visually is our county administrator. Did you have a report today, Andrew?
He's
I
eating
do,
a
and
cup
of course,
coffee.
I do, and of course, as you started calling on me, my computer froze up and nothing was working, and so
course it did.
I'm panicking here. You're going to think I'm not paying attention, but no, we are all good to go. So,
We weren't thinking that.
first off, a couple items for you. So you're aware, Greg has started to receive some inquiries from companies that are interested in cannabis-related businesses. With some of the regulatory uncertainty with regard to the Office of Cannabis Management, we're thinking that it'd probably be best to follow the lead of some other counties and adopt a moratorium. The statute allows the counties to have a moratorium in place until January 1st of 2025. If the board were to go forward with that process, businesses would not be able to obtain zoning approval until the county has completed drafting and zoning regulations, or January 1st, whichever comes first. We know that the state is looking to expedite permitting for cultivation operations, although to date, our inquiries have surrounded retail operation. Unless the board objects to this, our plan would be to publish notice for a public hearing at the first meeting in August, and the board would consider adoption at the second meeting in August. The notice requirements by statute do not provide enough time for a notice to be published in advance of our second meeting in July, which is why we're looking at that timeline there. So, as you're aware, the Planning Commission has already been starting to review material in preparation for discussion of cannabis regulations. And then also last week, the Office of Cannabis Management released their guide for local governments, which will help with that process. Planning Commission is planning to begin really focusing on this issue at their meeting in August. So, my question for you today is there any objection with us going forward with publishing for a public hearing at our first meeting in August?
Consensus.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So I thought we were just going to use, this is different than the non-smoking policy that we're using for this is different from what this is licensing for the wholesalers that are retailing. Is that what it is?
That's correct. Yes, this is regulation surrounding business operations.
Okay.
Yep.
So are there any other counties that are going ahead with it, or is it just, I know reservations are selling, but is everybody on hold with this?
So the Office of Cannabis Management has not started to issue licenses yet. They are going to be starting a a lottery process for individuals who fall within different, what they call social equity guidelines. There's a variety of categories that fall into that. For retail, they're also doing the same thing for cultivation licenses. Their goal is to get cultivation businesses up and running sooner rather than later so that they can start growing a product for sale in Minnesota, a Minnesota grown product. So that's where some of the urgency comes here, is those could come in faster than the retail. We don't believe that the retail are going to be ready to start pursuing zoning approval and their actual licenses until at least the beginning of next year, if not the second quarter of next year.
Okay. And when you say Greg is getting questions, are we talking?
He's had inquiries from people who are looking to set up a retail business, okay, and asking what our zoning regulations are, what our requirements are. So, okay. Yep.
All right.
I have a question, Andrew. Won't the state be our guide and be the ones to direct all of these rules and regulations over whatever the county wants to do? Won't it be a state regulatory system?
We still have zoning authority like we do for any other type of business. So we have authority to determine what zoning districts this type of business can be in, what sort of setbacks it needs to have from other uses, what sort of setbacks it needs to have from other cannabis businesses. There's a number of things that statute allows us to have local control of.
How does law enforcement feel about all of this? Have we had input from our Meeker County law enforcement folks?
So we have had some discussions, or as we talked primarily about the public use ordinance last year. We had a lot of conversations with law enforcement about that, and of course, the zoning piece of it gets wrapped into it. One of the things that we've talked about is requiring that any businesses produce a safety plan, essentially a security plan that would be in coordination with law enforcement, so that law enforcement had information about how their operation works in the event that something were to occur.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We talked about this at AMC a little bit too, and it's not, the concerns are broad spread across the state. I don't know how many moratoriums are on or not, and Greg has had this conversation with me too, that he was concerned on the grow side. But basically what AMC is saying, the state, they legalize cannabis, and then of course they have no really definite plan of how.
Such a shock, I just can't.
and so they legalize it, and they don't have very good guidelines, and they're not exactly Johnny on the spot with getting them put in place. So the longer this goes, the more of a bind it puts counties in, right. And that's where the moratorium comes in, to give some time to, we don't know what the state is going to come up with yet. So why are we issuing permits ahead of that? So that's right.
But the people that are coming are going to be upset with us because they've been waiting, which is fine. But here again, it's the state voting something in. Didn't they already terminate one director? They have no plan, and so they throw it back to us. And I'm not even anti-cannabis. This is just.
It's bad planning.
Bad planning.
It's bad planning, and it puts us in a bind, and that's where so the moratorium conversation is broader across the street.
Okay.
It's just,
it makes sense.
It's hard to put something in place, and then 6 months from now the state changes the
regulation.
Yeah,
a number of counties have adopted moratoriums.
What'd you say, Andrew?
I'm sorry. I said a number of counties have adopted moratoriums.
Right. No, I understand.
We hadn't at this point because we were believing that we would still be ahead of the state in our development of regulations. But particularly with the state's effort to try and move cultivation forward faster, it poses some concern, and we want to make sure that we are not finding ourselves in a spot where we are having to react. We'd rather be proactive.
When we start talking about growing, then who's going to inspect that? That would be our responsibility also, I suppose.
USDA.
Yeah, no, the state is going to be responsible for inspections of facilities, and the responsibility that we will have locally, particularly with retail businesses, is on compliance checks, age verification compliance checks. But we are not going to be responsible to go in and verify that products are the correct potency or labeled correctly, because we don't have the equipment to be able to do that.
All right.
So right across the street from Jackpot Junction is a brand new building, great big brand new building, Blacktop Road, their dispensary.
They're
Which will
ready.
be opening soon.
There you go.
Yes. So consensus wise, we can't take a motion on this. It was not on the agenda, but consensus wise, we are all in favor
I'm in
of
favor
a moratorium.
I am.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yes.
got
Okay. So hearing that,
We're all in favor, right?
Yep. That give you enough
hearing that,
direction, Andrew?
I'll talk to Greg and we'll get that scheduled for a public hearing at the first meeting.
Thank you.
And then next couple of items I have, speaking of the Planning Commission, they're going to hold their public hearing on the solar and wind ordinance on July 23rd in the community rooms at the courthouse. A notice of the public hearing is going to be published in the paper. And then after that meeting, the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustments will begin holding their meetings in the new boardroom where you all are sitting right now.
cool.
A quick construction update. Construction of Area C in the remodel project of the annex is underway. Last week, they began asbestos removal, and the demolition contractor has been working to begin removal of walls throughout the annex. They've been doing that for a while now. Temporary wall is going to be built between the annex and the hallway that leads to the rest of the building to fully separate the construction activity from the public. And then the treasurer's office moved into their new space yesterday and are working to get settled in. We've provided notification of the relocation of offices on the website, put up signage at the courthouse in their old spots. And that concludes my report.
The parking was interesting when I came this morning, so I just went around the other way, and it'd be nice to get that other lot.
I was walking in to the old courthouse at 2 minutes after 8.
Did you forget?
And Barb is walking out, and she said, "Are you a creature of habit?" And I went, what are you referencing? She said, "You know, Julie, we're meeting over in the new," and she
I worried
put
that
me
I
in
was
her
going
car
to do that.
and
I worried I was going to do that, and I remembered this morning.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Oh, well. So thank you, Barb, for
So
helping me.
what have we got left to do in here, Andrew, in the boardroom? Are we done?
In the boardroom, there's a couple of there's punch list items that still need to be done. So a little bit of cleanup stuff.
Yep.
I think that they may
I'm
still
seeing.
there's some paint stuff that I think needs to get touched up. There's a couple things in the ceiling that still need to get touched up that were supposed to be fixed earlier. So it's little cleanup stuff at this point in the boardroom. The new chairs will be here on Monday the 8th. So you'll have those for your next meeting. So yeah.
So there's not going to be anything in front of us for electronic. This is it. Okay.
This is it.
Andrew, there is shades coming for the windows, right? Because that is the one thing
yes,
I've noticed.
that's correct.
Oh, reflection? I see.
Reflection off of
Yep.
the computer screen.
Commissioner Johnson, you're correct. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, shades is one of the things that's been ordered, and we're waiting for it to be delivered. Hope is within 6 weeks or so we'll have them delivered and installed.
Well, I love this room, so I think we made a good decision. I just love this room. I always have. So.
I'm curious how that camera works too, facing that window behind you guys.
Oh, okay.
That's a good point.
It's not, I mean, well, today it's a little overcast, obviously. It's bright, but it doesn't completely wash everybody out.
I was just curious.
It'll be better when the blinds are up.
Did my hair turn color?
How's my lipstick?
I'm sorry.
Did I grow any?
Oh.
Tim, do you like our new boardroom? It's pretty in here, isn't it? Yeah. I can hear much better.
Good.
I'm sure
Good.
the camera
Great.
puts on 20 pounds, but what do we do
That's
about
my
that?
excuse. Always is.
Thank
Pass
you.
the cookies.
Thank you, Andrew.
Andrew, have fun.
We are all hoping that you are allowed to come back into the United States.
Yeah,
at some
really,
point.
there's
So,
that.
Well, I haven't been detained yet, so we'll see how the border crossing goes tomorrow. So I'll be back in the office on Friday.
Have fun.
Okay, have fun.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we're down to the Board Commissioners Committee reports, and we'll just start with number 1, Beth.
All right.
Oh, District 1. I thought you were saying I was number one. I'm going to confess to you.
Many times as you've been board chair.
Once. Let's not bring that up again. That bothered me for a week. I don't have a lot because our Woodland Board, there was a executive committee emergency, so that was canceled. And I have had a little bit from the hospital, but it's all caught up with Mary Ellen. So that's my report.
Okay. Julie?
All right. June 18th, we had a very busy schedule, all of us. We had a regular meeting in the morning at 8:30. Then Danny and I had a U of M Extension Finance meeting at 12:30 at the fairgrounds. And this meeting addressed the market adjustment study, which Barb referenced for us. And I had a little bit of a report on that, but I think Barb covered it quite well. We share with Wright and McLeod counties. We pay for 0.23% of the salaries and benefits of these three educators: horticulture, livestock, and crops. We have a full-time 4-H person and a full-time office staff who is right out here at our fairgrounds in the main office, so that's very convenient for Meeker County. Then at 1:30 on that Tuesday the 18th, Danny and I had the regular board meeting of the University of Minnesota Extension, and we heard reports from our educators. We had introductions of the summer interns, and of course everyone out there is gearing up for the county fair, which will be the dates of July 31st through August 4th. Then we all had the Board of Review meeting at 6:30 that evening of the 18th. That was in our old boardroom. We addressed the outcomes of that meeting a little bit earlier today, and I think there were 15 parcels which were discussed at that meeting. And then Tuesday the 25th, we had our ditch meeting in the morning, and we had a work session following that. So that was a busy couple.
Well, I was at all that stuff.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But people think I'm being lazy or
Yep.
something.
Oh, no, we were all very busy
Okay,
for
very
the
good, thank you.
18th and on the 25th. So, yeah.
We were busier than I thought.
We had a lot of things going on. Well, I believe that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schmidt?
On June 21st, I had an AMC meeting in St. Paul, Association of Minnesota Counties. At that meeting, they appointed a new 100% membership state position to the NACO board, and that was Tim Sumner, Bill Trammy, County Commissioner. Him and Rod Peterson out of Dodge County were in competition for that position, and Tim was offered that position, so he is our new NACO rep and that. Another thing they talked about was the immigration work group discussion, and that was a policy on that sanctuary state language that the state had earlier in the year. AMC did put a statement together on that policy, and actually Trista Martinson, who is Ramsey County Commissioner, presented that to the governor's office. That's the very same day that we did that, and she was thankful because she felt that helped influence their decision to back off on some of that. None of that made any hearings within the House or the Senate this year.
Do they feel like it's going to come up again, or are they well that what happens in November, or?
Well, and that's coming to that. We basically reviewed the policy that we put forth then and elected to keep it there and just to monitor and continue to watch.
Okay.
In the future, right now, it doesn't sound like any of that. It's always hard to tell what piece is grandstanding on an election year and what is actual going to get traction and get legs under it. But everybody in AMC pretty much agrees it was just bad policy and something like Ramsey and Hennepin County, they can't handle.
Really?
They do not They cannot, they made it very clear they don't have the resources. I mean, they just be compounding problems they already have with homelessness. So they don't, they just think it's bad policy. And we've talked about, years ago when you didn't take a position on something, you were okay. And today, when you don't take a position on something, somehow magically it appears that you're for it. And that was the discussion how AMC came to put, because they don't tend to like to make a position on something like this because it's controversial. But with this one, we felt we had to say something. So they'll continue to watch that. Then there's a veterans issue from Anoka County. Anoka County put together, it's on death certificates, and I'm gonna probably screw this up, with veterans. So they have a letter, and Andrew, I don't know if you've seen this or not yet. Sign on to a letter regarding veterans' death certificates and ask member counties to do the same. And Anoka has done this, and they're asking AMC to sign on to it. I think I'm near certain we're going to, but they recommend that AMC sign on to the letter and recommend that we send a notification to board action throughout our throughout the state to try and get people. There's a problem with receiving death certificates for veterans, and I got through COVID, and in one case during COVID, a VA doctor refused to sign a death certificate stating that they had not seen the veteran in person in this time frame. So some of these virtual issues, then the doctors don't want to sign the death certificates, and it leaves these families.
Well, you can't do anything without a death certificate.
Yeah, so it's putting a lot of people in a bind. So this is something they're trying to address, and
did it only happen with veterans, or it's happened all over?
Well, it's coming up through the Veterans Association, so I mean they're trying to address it. I'm assuming it's more broad spread than that, but and this is Paul Miller was the one that brought this up, but Anoka County is where it's where it originated from, and they have a long list of people signed on to it here too. So
well, what are they asking? Just to go ahead.
The counties to support it. But I was thinking they were going to send it out, so I don't know if that's something. Andrew, if you can hear me, if you can keep an eye out for that, and I'll follow up and see exactly where we are at with that from AMC, or why we haven't heard about that yet. That's something looking forward to on that. Andrew?
I do see I have an email about it, so I will look a little deeper into this, and we can bring a letter forward for consideration at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for not mentioning it sooner to you, but I thought it was being taken care of. That about does it for AMC. Then I had Grove City Care meeting in Grove City on the 24th. They're getting ready for their annual picnic on July 16th, which is just outside and hopefully outside if weather cooperates. And they just got a host of activities going on. One thing that, Andrew, I'm going to direct this at you again too, just to remind me when we go through budget with social services. I think last year social services budget was supposed to give Grove City Care $20,000 and they only received 10, and their annual is 10, and the extra 10 last year that was supposed to happen was for their work with social services on they did a bunch of legwork trying to develop a plan where they would long-term plan where they'd be more sustainable with the funding source through the state, and they were running into bottlenecks there, but that's something we need to check with Paul Bukovic on in accounting, so I'm just going to mention it here so we keep that on radar moving forward, and see if we can get them that other 10. Other than that, they're doing more adult exercise equipment. adding on to they've been really having a lot of success here the last few years. And the outreach they do, the foot care clinic, both here at Zion and in Cosmos, now they got it going. So they do a lot of outreach to elderly on that whole western side of the county. That keeps those folks from being involved here in social services here. So it's kind of it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, as far as elderly health care, at home, keeping people in their homes in Grove City area. Then we had a work session. We talked about JD 17. And then on the 27th, we had union negotiations. We met with the four labor unions and had them presentations. And, the asks are pretty tall at this time, but we'll see how that shakes out as we move forward. It was kind of the first meeting and everybody lays the cards on the table. We'll see what happened there. So that was on the 27th. Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Only two things that I had. We had a CPT executive meeting in which the CPT building in Morris, we are owners of, we're 1/24th owners of, but we're gonna put a new roof on, so we approved a $70,000 roof for that. We knew we were gonna have to do something with it when we purchased the building, but it's a good investment, it's a good building, and we have done well with CPT and our ownership there. So things are moving along real smoothly there. Very pleased. We've already talked about JD 17 in the work session. Then on Thursday, we had a UCAP meeting, and we had a couple of robust discussions there. One of them was, we deal with folks in UCAP that are, income is less. And one of the big issues that we talked about is the change in home insurance. We're hearing stories about home insurance doubling, tripling. But some of these folks are getting by paycheck to paycheck. Now all of a sudden they're going to have another little hurdle they're going to have to get over. So, we kind of talked about that in anticipation for a greater need for fuel assistance this year to maybe offset. So a lot of concerned people over that. A lot of, and rightfully so. From what I've heard some rather nightmarish stories of folks.
My homers got canceled because of it's a mess because everybody's putting on $70,000 roofs that should cost $30,000, and the insurance has been okaying it. And now here we are. I had to change insurance companies on both my properties.
So
and it's pricey.
Yes.
Which goes back. If you're renting out, it goes back to the person. It's a mess.
Yeah, some of these folks, we worked hard to help them get into their own home.
Right.
For home ownership.
Or if they're on a fixed income.
They're sitting there, and and yes, our elderly people, especially, that are on the fixed income.
But
so,
Paul, I think of this, UCAP, we get a lot of letters asking for donations, right?
We make an annual contribution. Is it $19,000 you were on budget?
To UCAP?
Yeah. I think that's their
So my question is, do they depend a lot on donations or?
A lot on grants.
Grants and donations then?
Donations, okay. but grants, heavily on the grants, especially in the fuel assistance.
I figured, and that always runs out, doesn't it?
No.
Oh, it doesn't anymore?
They have not run out of money for this past year yet.
Okay.
And they're about to start the new grant year.
Okay.
And so they didn't spend it all. Now let's think about the winter we had too.
It was pretty nice, wasn't it?
We had a pretty mild winter, so that had a big impact on it. The other thing that we had a lot of discussion on is cybersecurity, because we have a lot of information about folks at UCAP. And so just as we are here at the county, cybersecurity is a big thing, and they are just now moving to multi-factor authentication, and they are doing the things that are necessary. They've had a couple of tests done. They had a penetration test of which they passed, which is always good. So
I've gotten 3 letters in the last 3 weeks. You probably have too, from some investment places and a credit card company that I had that from an outside source were busted into and go in and change everything, and they don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people it's.
Well, let's look at the automotive industry. They got cyber or ransomware, and new car dealers and
Agriculture implement dealers.
ordering parts.
I think one of
It's
the
a
companies
nightmare.
that does billing and collecting for healthcare, big institutions was busted, so I don't think anybody knows.
No, but
And
we have to be.
This is important, it sure is.
We need to be vigilant on our know before, and you know, as dialed in as I am on cybersecurity because it's a high interest for me.
Were you
I
on the
had 2
list?
past dues.
I finished mine before he sent it out. I
think
said
I
I
did 'em
wanted
at
a retraction because I
midnight
had
last
done mine. I'd done mine before.
So, Andrew, are you still with us?
Got it done.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
This is just a question because we are in a new area. We always had the door open at the courthouse when we had a board meeting. Should that be the case here also? Would we have a requirement to have the door open?
It's a good question. We'll have to see how
Sound.
the hallway flows with the door open, because we don't want to create an obstruction. But at the same time, the meeting is open to the public, and we want it to be inviting to folks. So when I get back, we'll play around with it a little bit.
Just put a sign on, we are open, come on in.
Well, we may have to post a sign down there, quiet and open meeting in progress, and one down there. So if you're coming either direction, you soften your talk. But I don't know, I just thought of that.
I know there, that just says,
Yeah.
meeting
Come
is
on in.
open,
Yeah,
you're
open,
welcome
yeah,
to come
that
in.
might be easiest, because there's probably gonna be a lot more traffic coming up and down this hallway than there was. Yeah. Although sometimes it got noisy at the courthouse
Treasurer's
too,
office.
so
So is there any other business to come before us today?
it's pretty fast.
Hearing none, I am adjourning this meeting.
You might have the
Thank you.
record.